hear me? No. How's that? Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everybody to NCDA's Sustainable Agriculture Conference. Thank you all for coming. We are very excited about the number of attendees we have. On behalf of NCDA, I want to thank all of our presenters for volunteering their time and sharing their knowledge with us. I would also like to thank our vendors for participating. Oops. And then, of course, the Hilton for hosting our presentation. Just wanted to make a few announcements. Just make sure everybody's phone is turned off so we don't have rings going through the room. And then if you don't know where the bathrooms are out, they're out this door and to the left. And then a couple meetings that are coming up. We have our public policy meeting on March 22nd. It's in Greeley at NCMC, and it's from 2:30 to 6:30. And then on March 24th, we have our celiac presentation at MCR in Loveland. And then we are also doing a raffle today. So you should have all received a raffle ticket when you registered. And our vendors will also be handing out raffle tickets for our drawing that we're doing at lunch and the afternoon break. Okay, so today our goal is to increase your knowledge and awareness of sustainable agriculture and how it affects the health of our patients and our community members. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Gary Auld. Dr. Auld received his BS in chemistry from Drexel University and his master's and PhD in nutrition from Pennsylvania State University. He has been on the faculty at CSU since 1989. Dr. Auld's involvement in food system issues include co-directing a project promoting direct links between Colorado producers and food service institutions, developing a local Colorado food guide, and directing research looking at factors influencing producers to sell locally. So join me in welcoming Dr. Gary Auld.
I don't have my glasses, I can't read this one. So, yeah. All right, well, thank you, and I appreciate the invitation. When Alex invited me to do this, I said, oh, sure, and how much time do I have? And she said, 50 minutes. I thought, usually I have a problem, how can I fill time? This is the problem, is just the opposite. How can I cut all this and all these issues down to 50 minutes? So what I'm going to try to do is kind of get some definitions, which they ask, try to get you to think a little bit about what the purpose of a food system is and draw some contrast between kind of the philosophical background of people that approach food systems from one perspective or another. Highlight some of the problems facing agriculture, which is going to affect food supply. And then for those speakers coming after me, I'm not really going to be talking very much about solutions and alternatives. I'm just going to highlight some things, and then some of our subsequent speakers are going to look at that in more detail. And I see a few people that had my class last semester, so you might as well just leave, because there's nothing new than what you had last semester. So first definition. This is Joan Gussow, who's now retired. She was at Columbia Teachers College in New York, and I remember meeting Joan at one of the S&E meetings in the late 80s, and this is her definition of sustainable agriculture, which I'm not going to read. You can read it, but back in the late 80s, Joan was considered a flake. She was off in the extremes, and everybody thought, oh, who is this woman at these meetings getting up and just haranguing the speakers? And everything, and then she had an entire issue almost in AJCN on sustainable foods, and now she's mainstream. So basically, it's sustainable agriculture. You want to meet current needs without jeopardizing future needs. And Joan is considered kind of on the left. So this next series of definitions comes from USDA, so hardly a leftish organization. And I highlighted the things in yellow because these are the things that I think distinguish between a sustainable approach and kind of the approach we have. So it's an integrated system. Plant and animal production having a site-specific application, so it's different in different places. Satisfy human food and fiber needs, enhance environmental quality and the natural resource base, make the most efficient use of non-renewable resources, and we're going to look at some of those in a minute. Sustain the economic viability of farm operations. And in Colorado, as you know, a lot of the rural communities are really struggling, in large part because the farm operations are no longer viable. And enhance the quality of life of farmers. So that's USDA, which sounds very nice until you look at the money that USDA puts into agriculture, and there's very little of it goes to sustainable. It goes to more the mainstream agriculture. ADA, and since we're all getting, or many of us are getting our ADA continuing education credits from this, they came out with their a position statement that supports environmentally responsible practices, conserve natural resources, minimize generation of waste throughout the whole food system, food production, transformation, distribution. And this is primarily because, again, the hunger, environmental nutrition interest group in ADA. In contrast, industrial agriculture definition put forth was the farm's a factory. The inputs, pesticides, feed, fertilizer, outputs, how much corn or chickens, and the goal is to increase yield, bushels per acre, or chickens per month, and decrease the cost of production. And the argument is the economies of scale. You get bigger, you get, the feed is cheaper, you can hire one vet instead of multiple vets, that it just makes more sense to go large. The problem is these systems tend to externalize costs. Okay? So the health costs of the food system, the pollution that comes out of these very large-scale operations, the food security issues that come out of these large-scale operations are kind of ignored. Someone else deals with those issues. Nobody's else to put this, so I'm going to throw this one in here, and then it'll make more sense. But the real cost of food, and this is Pretty's not the only one that has. Get around this way a little bit. I can't read the slide. We not only pay at the food store, and we pay less than anybody in the world at the food store, but we also have taxes that are used to subsidize commodities, and that works out to about $250 per consumer. I have a family of 5, so in theory, $1,200 and some of my taxes is going to subsidize the agriculture industry. And then who pays to clean up the environmental damage, treat obesity, comorbidities, etc. In the 60s, Americans spent 18% of their income on food and 5% on health care. That's almost reversed, although slightly higher, 10% on food and 16% on health care. In many parts of the world, 50% of their income is spent on food. So when the price of food goes up, if it goes up 20%, okay, so now we spend 12% of our money on food. Not a big deal. Okay? If you're spending 50% of your money on food and it goes up 20% and now it's 60%, that's a problem. And you see that there's food riots all over the world right now. Not that we see it too much in our media. Now, this is my attempt to say that it's not black and white. Now, and the people that know me know that I lean in a particular direction. But I also recognize that none of these issues are black and white. There's always, it's gray. There's always trade-offs. And both as professionals and consumers, our values and preferences and biases, it's going to influence our choices. And, and what I tell the students is, well, at least make it conscious. Figure out what the trade-offs are, and then it's a conscious decision, not a decision made out of ignorance. So, in my family, we didn't eat foods that have been grown not knowing they'll eventually be eaten. So, this little experiment I do in my class, or a little activity, is to write down all the things, all the reasons, purpose of the food system, to get people thinking about, and obviously it's to feed people, but there's a variety of other things. And one of the